All right, guys. Almost missed the fact that my mic was muted again. I got to get better with that. But welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you're new. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for waiting patiently for the intro to finish up there, to allow a little bit more time for people to file in. Hope everybody is doing well today. It's been a mostly quiet week, I would say, for PlayStation, but we do have some stuff to go over and talk about today. We have a couple of topics. One of the things we will be talking about is Astro Bot related. We have some new Astro levels, some free DLC. We have an update. We have some release dates as well, which is nice. Yeah, it's getting chilly outside. Do I look super pale again? Oh my god! You know what? Hold on. I'm gonna try something. I'm pretty sure I know what's causing it. Holy hell! No, that didn't do anything. Oh, what happened to my? Oh, this is total disaster, total chaos right now. My microphone is naked. Oh, how the hell did it get all the way over? Dude, it was like over there across the room. I really don't know why. It has to be my screen. Let me see. Let's see if... Did that change anything? Do I still look super pale? I can't tell. I had to change the brightness of my screen, but because I've changed the brightness of my screen, I simply can't tell if I look as pale. I don't like that. I don't like the way it's making me look. It's making me look like a ghost. Complete chaos. Saying it's coming from my left. Yeah, dude, I don't know. Maybe it's my actual it might be my curtains. They're white. Maybe I don't know, maybe it's the reflection from the curtains or something. See if I move all the way back. There we go. Now I'm looking a little bit more normal. I guess I just have to sit all the way back here, which is a little awkward because then I gotta like reach all the way over here. I don't know. I'll have to figure this out. But appreciate you guys joining me today. Saying it's the contrast, possibly. The PS5 in the background is bleached out. You know what? Yeah. Before we dive into these topics, let me see if I can sort this out right here, right now. Let me see. Configure video. All right. You guys let me know. Contrast really high now. That's at 0. Look good like around here, maybe? Boss, can you please go, bro? Lower the brightness, increase the brightness. If I lower it a little bit, I don't know. I'm just trying to get it balanced out here. Saying it's the contrast. All right, I lowered it down. Yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing it too. You can barely like see the PS5. I don't know. I'm sliding the contrast up and down, and it doesn't seem to be helping that much. But I think that helped a little bit. That's good enough. Got to test the ray tracing, you know. Hopefully that did help somewhat, though. Check the gamma. The highlights are blown out. I wonder if I accidentally enabled HDR or something. Okay, boss, we're not... No. No, get down. Total chaos, man. I'm coming into this stream being like, we're going to be on topic. We're going to be concise. Everything's going wrong. Do I have HDR on? I think I might accidentally have enabled HDR, and that could be what's causing it, because I feel like this hasn't really been a problem up until like a day or two ago. I did go into my camera's like built-in settings recently, which are separate. I can't enable them now, though. That's the only problem. I can't fix it. If HDR is on, I have to disable it once the stream is finished. So I'll look into it. I'll look into it when the stream ends. Perfect Image with the super chat says, MBG, does this mean the PS5 Pro is not going to need engines for graphics performance? If so, can wait for PlayStation 6. Does this mean the Pro is not going to need engines for graphical performance? I'm going to say no, Perfect Image. I don't know that I fully understand the question, but from what I understand, every game engine is going to be, it's going to be handled the same way on the PS5 Pro that it is on the base PS5. I mean, like, a game that's using Unreal Engine 5, it's going to be handled pretty much the same exact way as it would on the base PS5 on the Pro, but the difference is they're going to be able to just simply do more with it. They're going to have more headroom. They're going to have more power to work with. Maybe you're saying, because I see in the chat you're saying PSSR, maybe you're talking about it from like an optimization standpoint. Maybe you're kind of asking the question that developers like are not really going to have to tweak their game engines to have to worry too much about higher pixel counts. They'll be able to like kind of fine tune the engines to be able to just leverage something like PSSR and other AI upscaling technologies. Yeah, I do think that is actually what is happening now. And I think that's what's going to continue to happen. And yeah, by the time we get to the PlayStation 6, we could just be, we're still going to be seeing games with internal resolutions of like 1080p or, 1440p or something like that. But the actual output we're going to see, I mean, we're already kind of seeing that now at the PS5 Pro, but it's going to be ramped up. So in that case, yeah, I think more and more game engines are going to kind of begin to leverage this technology. Or integrate it, I should say. So hopefully that answers the question, Perfect Image, and I appreciate the super chat, buddy. But yeah, we are going to be talking about Astro Bot DLC. We're going to be talking about the Xbox event that is happening tomorrow and how it is also kind of a PlayStation event. We're also going to be talking about an interesting opinion piece that I came across where Push Square says, opinion, the price of playing PS5 games day one is getting higher and higher, and no one's really talking about it. And I actually haven't read this opinion piece yet, so I don't fully know what they're talking about, but I thought it would be interesting to kind of read it over here with you guys and see what they're talking about and give my thoughts on it. We have a couple of bonus topics as well. I do have a topic here about X Defiant that I saw making the rounds. We might talk about that too. But yeah, this is what we're going to discuss today. And before we dive into any of these topics, I do want to, again, thank you guys for joining me. Also give a shout out to those of you who cannot watch the streams live, but watch them later on. I really appreciate the viewership. I want to ask you guys to please take a moment and hit the like button. We're sitting at 50 likes, which is great to see. Let's see if we can bump that up to 75 and then up to 100. It's an easy way for you to let me know you enjoy the streams, you appreciate the content, and it helps with YouTube's algorithm. There are a couple of ways you can support the channel, the content, and the community directly. We are completely fan-funded. I don't do sponsorships. Number one, consider becoming a channel member. Gain access to exclusive perks. We did a lengthy members lounge the other day, almost 2 hours long. People seem to really enjoy that members lounge episode that we did. So if you do become a member, you'll gain access to that as well as the entire back catalog of members' exclusive content. If you're already a member, the second way you can help is by dropping some membership gifts. We have a goal of 25 that we're striving for today. If we hit that goal of 25, we will feed the beast. In other words, we will give Boss a couple of treats, maybe Luna as well. And the third way is consider dropping a super chat like Perfect Image has done here. Ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. It helps. There's a fourth bonus way, direct donation link at the top of the chat. More and more people are beginning to utilize that direct donation link, and 100% of what you donate goes to the content creator, but you can still leave a message. So yeah, consider supporting the channel directly. I do rely on you guys to be able to do this, and I'm very thankful to be able to do this, and I appreciate all the support that we receive here from the community. Simply couldn't do it without you. But with that being said, the first topic that I want to dive into is Astro Bot. So there is a PlayStation blog that was written up by the head of Team Asobi, Nicholas Duche, I think is how you say his name. And it says, "Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to update you on some brand new Astro Bot content that will be arriving this month. First, on behalf of Team Asobi, I would like to say a big thank you to all of the Astro Bot players. We couldn't be happier seeing the reactions from players, both young and older. It's warmed the hearts of all the little crew bots here at Team Asobi HQ. We have read so many great reviews and received so many positive comments, and it's been amazing. However, if there was one piece of feedback that came through loud and clear, it was that you wanted more. So rather than put our little robotic feet up just yet, I don't know why he words it this way, we have been busy beavering away, and we have some new surprises ready for you. As announced at the recent State of Play trailer, or in the recent State of Play trailer, starting on October 17th, we will be releasing the first of our brand new speed run levels, Building Speed. These levels will test your platforming skills, and alongside an online leaderboard, will give you a chance to compete against all of your PlayStation friends. In Building Speed, with the help of Barkster, the Bulldog Booster, you will blast your way through Sky High City, dodge cranes, smash through crates, and even speed through a flying car wash on the way to rescue your stranded crew. Following on from this, we will release brand new speedrun levels each week, so by the time you have perfected every jump, hover, and spin in one level, a new challenge will await you. So this is the release schedule. Starting tomorrow, October 17th, they're going to be releasing Building Speed. Then on October 24th, they're going to release the next one called Let It Slide. On October 31st, you're going to get Spring Loaded Run. November 7th, Helium Heights. November 14th, Rising Heat. It says, note, all Astrobot updates from October 17th to November 14th will be available every Thursday at 6 a.m. PT. What's more, each of these new levels contain 2 brand new special bots for you to rescue. That's 10 new beloved characters to add to your crew. We gave you a sneak peek of Eve from Stellar Blade and the Helldivers. However, as for who is next, well, that's for you to find out, so get busy rescuing. Lastly, the best thing, it's at no extra cost. We want to thank you again for all the love and support you've given to Astrobot. It means the world to us. That's all we have for today. However, watch this space as there may be even more surprises coming soon. Team Asobi out. So some good stuff there overall. Interesting that they are saying there might be even more surprises coming soon. I wonder what that could be. Maybe even more DLC later on. But yeah, this is a great thing that I think Team Asobi's doing for Astrobot. I mean, it feels like the conversation around Astrobot came and went relatively quickly, but I think this is a good way to kind of make sure, or for Sony and Team Asobi to make sure that people aren't forgetting that, hey, Astrobot released last month, and we're approaching the holiday, so I'm sure a lot of people are going to be picking this game up for their kids or, as a gift. But Michael, you're saying I keep trying to super chat, but it keeps saying message not sent. Damn. It's so disheartening to see that, Michael, not because of you, but because I keep seeing this pop up from people in the chat, like more than I would like to, where people keep saying they're trying to super chat, or they're trying to drop a membership gift, or they're just trying to fan fund in some way, but YouTube's system, something is going wrong with it and it's getting in the way. So if you want to try to type it in the chat, Michael, I'll see if I can read it, but I don't know, hopefully it'll correct itself and go through. Saying rewrite your words. Some words can't go through. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know YouTube has certain words that they don't like. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what you're typing, Michael. Maybe if you try typing it in the regular chat, if it doesn't go through, maybe that explains why it's not going through. But yeah, Astro Bot was a great game, and I'm gonna be paying attention starting tomorrow. I'm gonna see what exactly these levels are gonna look like. I think the thing I'm mostly going to be paying attention to with this Astro Bot DLC is whether or not there's going to be trophy support, because the way I operate with like 99% of the games I play, single player games that is once I complete them and I move on, I rarely go back, at least not for a very, very, very long time, if ever. And while I think this DLC is great, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to go back to it. However, if they do add trophy support for these levels, I might, just because if they do add trophy support, that means when I go to look on my trophy list at Astrobot, it's not going to say 100%. It's going to say like 90% or something like that, which is kind of annoying. But I don't know. I might just wait. I might wait till all the levels are out, and then maybe after that, I'll go play them. I'm not sure, though. It is free DLC. I guess I'm a little bit nervous. Like, do you think these levels, they don't really say here, but you think they're going to be like really difficult, like the challenge runs? Because some of those challenge runs were really difficult. I'm looking at some of the, I mean, it says it's a speed run, so it looks more like you're just going to be playing through the level, and it kind of, okay, yeah, that's a different section. For a second, I thought you were just going to be playing through the same exact level, but it was just going to be basically timing you. But no, it does look like they're adding some new sections. I do wonder if they're going to be extremely difficult. Taicho, you're saying you think they're going to be harder or just as hard? That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. IP Gaming, you're saying, what's up, MBG? Got the hoodie out, I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit chilly today. Henry 3K, you're saying you're going to play all the new levels? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure yet. I think if they don't add trophies, I might wait. Yeah, Michael, I think you... So you're saying, MBG, I posted what I tried to super chat in the regular chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. It's not there, dude. The last chat I see from you, Michael, it says, I keep trying to super chat, but it's saying message not sent. There must be a word. I don't know. There must be some kind of word you're using that's not going through, because it's not even showing up on the regular chat. I don't know what word it would be, but I would maybe try to do what Perfect Image said. Maybe try to reword it, say the same thing, but slightly differently. See if that fixes it. Very strange. Shadowlink, you're saying a bunch of YouTubers have stated when it's around any sort of election time, everything slows because of the focus on the election content. Also towards the end of the year and holidays. Yeah, it's to be expected to a certain degree. I mean, I think things are slow also right now, speaking of like PlayStation and gaming in general, because, dude, September was crazy. You know, Sony was doing big things every single week of September. So I think it just kind of makes sense that after such a significant month, you know, such an outpouring of new information and events and live streams and whatnot, that the next month usually there's kind of a noticeable slowdown. But I'm just happy to see that Team Asobi is continuing to support Astrobot. I think adding these new levels is a good way to kind of get people back into the game re-engaged. And I'm really happy to see that it's free DLC. This is something that Sony's been doing for a little while now with quite a few of their first-party games where sometime after launch, they release some kind of free DLC. Sometimes it's paid, but there are these times too where you get DLC like God of War's Valhalla DLC from last year, where it's just like, whoa, this is amazing, and it's free, you know? So I imagine that the quality of these new levels are going to be very high, very well done, because everything about Astro Bot is well made. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. I'm really interested to know what they're teasing, though, because the thing about these DLC levels, if I'm not mistaken, Team Asobi told us before the game even came out that they were planning to do this, but they say here, however, watch this space as there may be even more surprises coming soon. Paid DLC? A paid expansion, maybe? Could this be why there were certain, I'm not going to spoil anything, but could this explain why there were certain characters from certain franchises explicitly missing? I don't know. I'm just speculating, of course, but interesting that they're teasing that. You think that they're teasing their next game? It's coming sooner than we expected? You know what would be a huge surprise? I don't think it's going to happen. They seem to have made it pretty clear that, and at least in my opinion, that it's not going to happen. But ACM says it's definitely Bloodborne 2. Yeah, that's clearly what they're teasing. 30th anniversary content? Oh, that'd make a lot of sense. I was thinking maybe like, what if they come out and they surprise everybody and they're like, PSVR 2 support? That'd be pretty cool. That'd be very surprising. But I don't know. When Team Asobi was asked about it directly, they seemed to make it pretty clear that this game was not built with PSVR 2 in mind. Astro Kart Shadow Drop. There we go. There we go. They should do Astro Kart, dude. They definitely should. I feel like that's the next logical step. Final Fantasy, / Square Enix collab. Who knows? Who knows, man? Maybe it could just be more free DLC. Maybe we're overthinking it. Maybe what they're teasing is just more levels. They're going to turn Astro Bot into a live service game. Introducing Astro Bot Battle Pass. Astro Bot Royale. Astro Battle Royale. Oh, see, there we go. We nailed it. We figured it out, guys. I mean, think about it. It's perfect with all the cameos. Start selling certain bots as DLC. And then they could take it a step further and they could make like little collectible bots, kind of like amiibos. You could buy them, scan them in the game. Oh my God, that sounds like such a nightmare. Why do I feel like there are some people who would actually love that, though? That sounds like such a nightmare. But no, I think it'll be something better than that, obviously. But there we go. I will keep you guys updated when we get more news on Astro Bot. I'm going to be really curious to see if new trophies are being added. I feel like, I will say before I move on, I do think there are going to be new trophies. I'm saying this because when they updated Astro's Playroom with the new bots that you could collect prior to Astro Bot launching, they had trophies. So I think they might do that, in which case I'm probably going to have to play this. All right. Guys, we're going to move on to the next topic. Before I do, though, continue to hit that like button. We are sitting at 79 likes. So 21 more likes, and we hit the 100 like mark. But I have a write-up here from Push Square where they say, expect plenty of PS5 and PS4 news at the Xbox Partner Preview this week. They say here Microsoft has announced a partner preview broadcast, a live stream designed to spotlight titles from third parties. While the show will, of course, focus on Xbox, it will also inevitably include news and updates for PlayStation fans. Officially, Microsoft is promoting 25 minutes of trailers and new information with a spotlight specifically on Alan Wake 2's upcoming The Lake House expansion and Sega's spin-off Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. There will also be footage from Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, which did show up at a State of Play, and various other world premieres. And so this Xbox partner preview is happening tomorrow. So it'll actually be occurring when we will be streaming. So we will stream that live and see what's up. But yeah, this is something that I think if you are a PlayStation player, you might want to pay attention to, because I mean, it's a partner preview. You know, it's specifically focused on third-party games and multi-platform titles that will also be coming to PlayStation. And that's why I mentioned that game, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. What's interesting about that is I think that game was officially revealed during a State of Play. And some people, I think, maybe believe that maybe Sony had the marketing rights or something. But as we've seen before, these games can kind of go back and forth. But this is essentially Xbox's equivalent of a third-party State of Play, right? If Sony were to do a State of Play and they told us it's just going to be focused on third-party, it's going to be 30 minutes long, that's basically what this is. But they are telling us some of the games that are going to be there. I don't know if I'm really interested in the Alan Wake DLC. I did enjoy Alan Wake, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as a lot of other people did. I mean, it really feels like that game went just totally, completely off the rails at the end, to a point where I was just like very confused and perplexed. But ultimately, I think I did enjoy the ride. I didn't think it was bad or anything. I did enjoy it. I just don't know that it's a game that's necessarily at the top of my... Maybe I'd have to go back and replay it. I don't know. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I think I might just have bad memory. Now that I'm like thinking about Alan Wake 2, I'm remembering some of the areas I played through, and yeah, maybe I'm not giving that game enough credit. But when it comes to the DLC, I don't know. This is the problem, man. I struggle. It seems like no matter how much I like a game, when there's a standalone DLC, I don't know. I like never go back. So I don't know that I'm necessarily excited. Wait, you're saying Wu Chang was announced at the Xbox showcase? Then what am I thinking of? No, hold on. I'm pretty sure Wu Chang showed up at a State of Play. Maybe it showed up at the Xbox showcase. Maybe they did snag the marketing rights for it. I'm telling you, it did show up at a State of Play. Is my memory that bad? Oof. Maybe you're right. You're saying I'm thinking of Wu Kang or Wu Long? You know what? You might be... Yeah, wow. Hold on. Then what... No, I'm not... I know I'm not thinking of Wu Kang. Or Wu Kang. Wu Kong. Wu Kang. Wu Chang, Wu Kang, Wu Kong. It's all the same. I'm trying to see what game... Yeah, I don't know. I can't find it. I know there was another Chinese game. So I guess I was wrong about that. Phantom Blade? No, it's not Phantom Blade, dude. Now I feel like I'm losing my mind. Let me just go check the actual state of play. May 2024 state of play, everything announced. Wow, maybe I am losing it. Oh, you know what? Okay. Ballad of Anatra. That's a Chinese. I'm pretty sure that's a Chinese studio. Where the Winds Meet. Okay. Now I see where the confusion came from. Basically, I thought this game, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, I thought this game was also shown at the state of play alongside Ballad of Anatra and Where the Winds Meet, because I'm pretty sure those are two Chinese developed games. And yeah, the Xbox showcase took place just a couple weeks after that state of play. So I was probably confusing that that's actually where it shows up. It is a multi-platform game though. Like it will be coming to PlayStation, but my bad. I thought that it was originally announced at a state of play. You're too young to have short-term memory loss. Yeah, I would hope so. I think it's more along the lines of just confusing the different events because they were so close to one another and just kind of forgetting which games were revealed where. But they're also talking about Like a Dragon, the Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. I know people love these games. I never played the Yakuza games. Never played them. And I don't know that I'm going to start with that one. I don't know if I'm ever going to play them, but I certainly don't know that I would start with that one. But those are the only 3 games that they've confirmed so far. So Alan Wake 2, the Lake House expansion, Like a Dragon, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, and Wu Chang Fallen Feathers. But they also say there's going to be world premieres. So this is honestly the biggest reason why I think I'm going to be tuning in, because while I'm not too interested in, I'm not too interested in the Alan Wake 2 DLC or Yakuza necessarily. I will be interested to see what new games they potentially announce. I don't know that I have high expectations. I'm not going and expecting like bomb drop announcements or anything like that. But we did speculate the other day on the last stream, like, could Resident Evil 9 show up? I mean, it's possible, but I don't know that that's likely. That's another reason I'm tuning in. Yeah. Metal Gear Solid Delta potentially showing up, maybe getting a release date. The timing would, I think, be good. Silent Hill 2 is out now, so they don't have to worry about, getting in the way of the launch of that game. Konami, that is. They could show another trailer. Metal Gear Solid Delta had a very significant presence at the Xbox showcase, and I think Metal Gear Solid Delta actually showed up at the last preview event as well. So, yeah, we could see it, and I would be stoked for it. Saying the hype for the show is pretty dead, but to be fair, it's a third-party event. Yeah, I don't think people are meant to go into it with high expectations. I mean, the one thing I will say I appreciate about the way Microsoft handles these partner preview events is they make it very clear, like, it's just, it's updates on third-party games, some of which are already announced, and I'm fine with that, It's kind of interesting to see, the more I think about it, it's interesting to see the way Microsoft is doing it versus the way Sony's doing it, where Microsoft is still doing like the traditional big middle of the year showcases. And then like outside of that, seemingly just doing these like smaller, I guess what we would call like Xbox's versions of State of Play, except they're just focused on third party. To whereas Sony is just kind of doing their own events 3 to 4 times sporadically throughout the year, like on a quarterly basis, and throwing a little bit of first party in here and there. So, yeah, that's a question that I think is worth asking, right? Or at least acknowledging. I think some people are going to be asking that question. Uh, is Microsoft going to announce more games or a game or something? Is there going to be another announcement of a Microsoft game coming to PlayStation? I'm going to say probably not. Probably not. I don't know that it makes sense for this to be a place to announce something like that, because it's called a partner event. The whole idea of this show is to showcase partners with Xbox, not exclusively, but partners with Xbox, using that show as a way to be like, by the way, here's one of our games that we're sending out there to PlayStation or something. I don't think it makes sense. I think if there is going to be another Xbox game announced for PlayStation, I think that would probably happen at the Game Awards or something like that. I think that's a more likely scenario. MBG is setting low expectations. Yeah, I mean, after the last State of Play, man. Well, I mean, obviously State of Play is, again, very different. There was a lot of pressure on Sony State of Play that they did, to whereas with Xbox, like, I give Xbox the credit that, dude, they had their big show. They had their showcase this year. They showed their games. They showed their hand. They made it a big spectacle of it, and they showed a lot. And so I think it's like, yeah, it's kind of fine, right? It's totally fine for them to just be like, this is just going to be a very small little bonus thing we're doing. Honestly, I'm glad too, because I thought there were going to be 0 events of any kind this month. So the fact that there's just a little something extra here, even if it is Xbox doing it, and I'm not as interested because of that, it is a partner show. So yeah, saying MBG, it's oxymoronic to announce PlayStation games at an Xbox show. I agree. I do agree. But I know that some people might be going into it. Like the way I title the stream here, it says PS5 game updates at Xbox event. Some people might be reading that the wrong way and reading that as like, oh, so this is where Xbox is going to announce more of their games coming to PlayStation. No, I don't think so. Yeah. You're looking forward to the one more moment thing coming to PS5 moment. That was such a crazy thing to watch, man. I mean, that was truly bizarre, where it's like it's like Jeff Keighley's one more thing moment. And the one more thing moment was, yeah, Indiana Jones is coming to PS5. It's like, whoa. What happened, bro? Like, what state is the video game industry in that these are the one more thing moments now? Not even new game announcements. Platform announcements. Next year's going to be crazy for gaming. I agree. Yeah. I'm in agreement there. I think next year is going to be, I mean, obviously, depending on what does or doesn't get delayed out of next year, if all the games that are supposed to hit next year actually hit, 2025 is going to go down. It's going to be one for the history books, certainly. That's what we say every year. I mean, yeah, I do agree. There's always like an added level of hype or excitement going into a new year. But I think something that, well, I don't say it's objective, but in my opinion, looking at some of the games that are lined up as of right now to release next year, I don't know. I think it's going to blow 2024 out of the water. I mean, we're talking about like Death Stranding 2, GTA 6, Ghost of Yotei. I mean, those are like just those 3 games alone. But games like Monster Hunter Wilds, which I know there's a lot of hype for that. The rumor is Resident Evil 9. We don't have confirmation of this yet. Yeah, Fable, true. I think that is targeting 2025. The rumor currently is that Resident Evil 9 is targeting a 2025 release. We don't have confirmation of that. But, I mean, these games sound very exciting to me. Yeah, Borderlands 4. Wait, is Borderlands 4, is that targeting 2025? Was that confirmed with the teaser? I mean, this year was strong, to be clear. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying 2024 was... I don't think 2024 was a weak year. I think 2024 was actually a very strong year for gaming. Very strong. But I just think that looking on the horizon, 2025 has the potential, a lot of potential, to be even better. Which is exciting, you know? I think that's what people want, right? So Borderlands is confirmed to be targeting 2025. Oh, yeah, and it's weird because I was going to say Indiana Jones, but that's coming out in December for Xbox, and then I think in, like, April or something. Yeah, I think it's, like, early spring for PlayStation. And we're going to have another Call of Duty. Did you guys see, by the way, I noticed this on Twitter earlier, the product line announcement or the accessory announcement for Black Ops 6. It's so interesting to see the marketing surrounding Call of Duty for Xbox after seeing it so closely marketed with PlayStation every year, where they announced 2 Black Ops 6 custom Xbox controllers. I think one is a regular controller, the other is the Elite, and they announced a Black Ops 6 wrap for the Series X. I have to admit, I'm liking the controller. I gotta admit. I'm liking the Black Ops 6 limited edition Xbox controller. Don't know that I'm going to buy it, but I like what they're doing there. How are those wraps, by the way? I think, I don't know why it sounds so weird that, because I know PlayStation does the covers or the plates, right? Where you pop the covers off and put a different cover on. It is always weird to me when I see these special edition wraps announced, because it sounds so cheap to me. And I wanted to ask you guys, I don't know how many people here have a Series X. Is there anybody here who has a Series X who used, what is it, like, I think Starfield was the last one? They had like Starfield wraps. Oh, they're magnets. Okay. All right. That pretty much tells me what I need to know then. Because when they say wraps, I'm thinking, like, is this like saran wrap? Like, like how does this work exactly? It's like a sticker, but they're magnets, so they must be okay. That's definitely better. That's better. That's smart. Okay. That's pretty cool. That's such an interesting that's an interesting way to go about it. Now, my only question with that, though, too, is, like, does that affect the heating of the console? Or the cooling of it, I should say? Because I feel like I would be nervous. If I had a Series X and I bought, like, one of these wraps, I'd be nervous it would, like, potentially overheat it. Surely they thought of that, you know? You have the Starfield wrap, and it's basically a magnet, like an iPad case. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool solution. I wouldn't have thought of that. Saying no, it doesn't. The vents are on the bottom and the top. Oh, yeah. Okay. True. Yeah, that's a pretty ingenious solution, I would say, to come up with those wraps. I just think that just calling them wraps is so funny. Don't you want to wrap up your console? But yeah, man, so strange to see the heavy marketing push. You know, you see, like, I mean, PlayStation, what's strange too is, like, no exclusivity stuff. Gotta give Xbox credit for that, man. Sony was, like, completely cutthroat with the exclusive stuff, where they're just like, can we get an exclusive operator? Can we get exclusive, like, double XP bonuses? Can we get exclusive this? Anything Sony could get exclusive, they would pay for that. And I always thought that was pretty annoying. Like, just for, like, smaller stuff like that, where it's like, all right, I mean, I get why Sony would do it because it works clearly to a certain degree. And I'm just a little bit surprised that Microsoft decided we're not doing that. It's like you can do it. You own it now, man. And Sony's been doing that shit for 10 years. You could do it, but good on them. Oh, wait, you're saying, wait, don't give them credit. The FTC made it that way. Yeah, I guess you're right. Probably a small price to pay for them, though. It does make me wonder if the FTC and, if they weren't worried about the regulators in the future for potential future acquisitions, if they would do it differently. But I'm just glad that shit's over. Marketing rights are one thing. I don't know. I was never a fan of the whole idea of just like cutting out little tiny slivers of things and like making it exclusive. It just seemed like a bit much. Kareem Ali, you're saying, hi, BG. I just hope next year heals the industry. 2024 is probably the most negative and toxic the industry has ever been with layoffs and discourse. I couldn't agree more. I could not agree more, Kareem. 2024 has been a pretty wild year all around, I would say. I mean, you say it's like been one of the most toxic years. I fully agree with that. I don't know what exactly made it that way. I don't know if maybe it's because these companies have made some strange decisions out of desperation. I mean, obviously there is the layoffs that don't necessarily help, but I guess in one way, shape, or form may have been necessary. Maybe it was from, there was certainly some overhiring that needed to be corrected, but no doubt that a lot of companies kind of entering survival mode this year. And I'm not sure. I mean, the industry, I think there's a deeper aspect to this, Kareem, where you talk about you hope it like heals. I mean, to me, that will only come in the form of video game publishers and developers ultimately realizing that if you want to maximize your potential, you have to be more balanced in your approach. And I know I use that word a lot, balanced, but if you think about it, the things that people were not happy with this year, or the things that caused people to, I guess you could say, become the most toxic and what drove the most discourse, you can pinpoint that it seems to come from a place of imbalance, right? I mean, you could look at key points of the year. For example, you look back to the beginning of this year, one of the craziest moments was when the rumor mill basically exploded with everything under the sun about Microsoft's doing this, Microsoft's doing that, Xbox is finished, they're done with console, every one of their games is going, and it just felt like everything was accelerating at just an unrealistically rapid rate. And that it's because that there was a misbalance. Something was completely off balance, and that's where Microsoft had to come in and rebalance it with their podcast they did, where it's like, oh, hold on, there are some major changes, but it's not all that, so it kind of helped restabilize things. And same thing with PlayStation, man. You see like a state of play that comes out in May, and everybody's upset and everybody's annoyed because they're like, bro, where's your showcase? You know what I mean? Where's your showcase? And so, Sony comes out with Concord, and that's way off balance. They have to rebalance and readjust. Okay, how do we do that? Well, here's Astro Bot. Here's a big first-party announcement at our next state of play. And I just think, really, the only way to achieve this level of balance and precision, if you will, is it's going to require consistency. And I think maybe that's what these companies need to try their best to focus on going into 2025 is be consistent with your messaging, be consistent with managing expectations, be consistent with your delivery, because I think ultimately that's what's going to be needed. I do. I think that when we talk about 2025 being a better year and having bigger games and more exciting games, I think that will happen. But we also have to consider the other side of that, like even bigger failures, even bigger embarrassments, even bigger problems. Like these are possible as well. That's not for the sake of being negative. It's just for the sake of being realistic. And that, like, I don't think anybody could have predicted just how toxic some of the discourse would become over the course of this year. And I do blame a lot of the internet itself for overreacting, and myself included at times. But there's also the reality that it comes from a place. There is a catalyst. And yeah. So all in all, I hope things improve as well, Kareem. Perfect Image says, what's the next acquisition for Sony or Xbox? It's a good question. For Sony, I'm going to say there is no next acquisition for quite some time. I say this because, Sony is in a position right now where they're trying to increase their profit margins, and they're trying to do this after spending copious amounts of money on, I don't know if we can definitively call them failed acquisitions. I will call Firewalk a failed acquisition. Bungie, a mostly failed acquisition. Bluepoint, I don't think Bluepoint's going to be a failed acquisition. Firesprite remains to be seen. But they spent a copious amount of money on M&A, and they have yet to see really any meaningful results, except in some cases, like Firewalk, we've just lost an unbelievable amount of money. And so I think that stops Sony from making any more acquisitions, at least for some time, unless there's something really obvious that presents itself, like Arrowhead wants to be purchased. Like, okay, maybe you do that. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know that I would pass that up necessarily. But in terms of, like, you see Ubisoft and how they're struggling, like, oh, should Sony go in and buy Ubisoft? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. When it comes to Microsoft, believe it or not, I think Microsoft might be in a somewhat similar situation in the fact that I don't think Microsoft is rushing out there. I could be wrong. This is just my assessment, my estimation right now. I think Microsoft is much more focused on trying to make the acquisitions that they've currently made or that they already made with Bethesda and Activision Blizzard work harder for them and do more for them. I think that's currently what they're trying to figure out. And from Microsoft's standpoint, I think they would kind of hope that it does work out, obviously, and makes them the type of money back that they want to make. And then maybe they would consider other potential acquisition targets. But I think it's going to take some time. I think they have to see that there's going to be money coming back to them in the way that they expected, in the way that they had hoped. And only then will they consider investing even more so, because that's really what it boils down to. It's a matter of investment. And that's why when you look at Sony, right? That's why it's easy for me to say that Sony's not going to be investing in any more acquisition anytime soon, because Sony has not, they've only lost money as far as I'm aware. Sony has only lost money on their acquisitions. And if there's a studio that they acquired that's going to make them money, it has yet to be seen. And I think Microsoft, because the purchases they made were much larger, I think it's going to take just a longer amount of time for them to really figure out, like, are we making money on this or not? And I think ultimately it's just a kind of waiting and seeing approach and seeing seeing where it goes, and then deciding from there. Sony lost money with Factions, PSVR 2, Concord, and possibly Bungie. Oh, they definitely lost. I'll tell you this right now, Carlos. One thing I feel confident in saying, Sony lost by far and away the most amount of money on Bungie. Oh, boy. You know how expensive it is just to maintain Bungie every single month? You know how expensive that is? Oh, my God. And that's not even counting. That's not even counting the $3.6 billion they paid for them. That's crazy, dude. For anybody wondering why there's so many layoffs at Bungie, it's like, that's why, dude, because just keeping that headcount is ridiculously expensive. So, yeah, I think Sony right now is basically I don't want to say they're in survival mode, but I think Sony is still somewhat in course correction mode, where they invested so heavily in live service. I mean, they went all or nothing with the live service approach. Go big or go home. And they realized that, oh, we're going to have to go home. But it's a little too late for that because you already went big. You already spent big. So you can't just go home now. So they had to completely course correct with their live service approach. And I think because of that, they're still in this process, this awkward process where it's like, again, we recently had that conversation, like, is Concord going to come back? And it's like, hopefully not, but maybe. What about Fair Games? Is that going to be good? Probably not, but maybe. And Sony, they don't really have the answer to some of these questions either. Like, they're trying to figure it out. And it really feels like Sony's approach to live service ultimately was just invest now and figure the rest out later. That's what it feels like is going on. And right now, I think we're in that process of them still trying to figure the rest out. But when it comes to their single player stuff, for what they've already had locked in, I think they're still good to go with that. Their partnerships, I think they're still good to go with that. Kareem Ali with another super chat says, I'm still baffled on what happened with Concord. Like, how do you screw up that bad and be tone deaf to what your customers want? Yeah. Well, I'm going to say, without being like hyperbolic about it, because I feel like a lot of the evaluation I've given for something like Concord and that situation is very much derived from a place of emotion. But removing that emotion and just trying to be more logical about it, I think it just comes from a lack of experience and understanding in the live service space. Could it be something worse than that? Yes. But what makes me hard to believe it could be something worse than that is because it's like, well, Sony knows we want Death Stranding 2. Sony knows we want, well, at least most of us want Ghost of Yotei. Another single player follow up to Ghost of Tsushima from Sucker Punch. Sony knows that we wanted another Astro Bot. And Sony knows we want Wolverine. So it's like these things exist. These things are still, being spooled up and coming. So when we look at what Concord was and we ask the question, like, how could they be so out of touch? It just has to be some kind of major blind spot. And that blind spot comes from the fact that you really don't know what you're doing in the live service space, do you? And if it's not that, the only other thing I can think is it's just desperation, blinded by desperation. maybe the executives at Sony got so desperate to have a big smash hit live service game that they all kind of bought in and were like, yeah, because that's what we heard, right? Like, it's the too big to fail, too good to fail mentality. And sometimes these lessons have to be learned the hard way. And I think in this case, this is what makes me nervous about the idea of Concord ever coming back, is it's like, Sony, surely you learned your lesson, albeit the hard way, but you learned the lesson nonetheless, correct? And they're like, no. What do you mean? We'll see. It is concerning, it is concerning. There is a level of concern that needs to be there. Again, it's for every mistake that Sony seemingly has made or is making, there seems to be something right there to counter it. And that to me is the part that I just hope Sony is aware that, like, if the time comes where you're making those mistakes and you don't have something there to counter it, then you're just going to be left with a mistake. And it's like so funny to me that as soon as Concord came out and then like insta died, it's like an insta death, right? And it was like, frankly, one of the most embarrassing things I've seen from PlayStation. Where it was like, this is painful to watch, man. And I think everybody was just kind of cringing. Literally a week later, here's Astro Bot, 94 on Metacritic. People are loving it. And like, you look even at the state of play. The state of play, it's like, here's the trailer for Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered. And I'm losing my mind because I'm like, oh my God, this is the only first party they're bringing. I'm losing my mind because I'm like, this is what they're going to end with. There's no possible way. And like, whoa, hold on. Before you get mad at us, here's a new AAA first party game announcement from Sucker Punch. And that's where it's like, again, there's always something there to kind of counterbalance the bad. And, when you see something like the PS5 Pro and how in the eyes of some people seemingly the PS5 Pro is a mistake. The $700 price point is a mistake. And this is a bad thing. And Sony's really messing up here. It's like, what counters that? You know what counters that? The fact that you don't have to buy it. The fact that you can walk into a store right now, spend $500 on a base PS5, and you're going to get great looking and running games. And that's why it's so strange to me that this entire year, there's been just this kind of seesaw-like back and forth effect where Sony can seemingly not find consistent footing. And when I say consistent, what I'm talking about is just consistently going up and up and up, step by step. It's one step back, one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back, one step forward. And where do you go? You're not going anywhere. You're just kind of staying in the same place. And that's why I do have hope that 2025 could be better, where it's like, let's start getting some steps forward now. Like in a row. You take 3 steps forward and 1 step back. Okay, we still got 2 steps progress. And I think that's really what Sony needs to try to do. I don't know if they're going to, but it's like if they do try to release Concord again, if they're like, we're going to re-release Concord to try to make some money back, in my opinion, that's another step backwards. To whereas if Sony says we should do a 30th anniversary showcase, that's like 2 steps forwards. Or if they're like, we're going to have another first party reveal at the Game Awards, that's a nice step forward. You know, we need to see those. They just maybe rather than looking at it as steps, like blocks, you put one block and then another and then another. And instead, Sony's just like one block, take away the block. I'm going to put one block down. I'm going to take that block away. It's like, okay. Lone Wolf Gamer, sorry to keep you waiting, buddy. Thank you for the super chat. You're saying, MBG, are you still buying the Pro? I decided to wait till next year. I just got too many other expenses right now. That'll give me time to see how it turns out. It's a good question, Lone Wolf Gamer. I mean, I do find myself, as we get closer to the launch, feeling a bit more torn about it than I expected to feel, if I'm being completely honest. There is a part of me that feels a bit obligated. And I'm like trying to grapple with that feeling and trying to discern, like, how do I feel if I remove that feeling of obligation? Because the reason why I feel somewhat obligated, it's obvious. It's because, well, I run a PlayStation-centric channel, and this is a very big hardware release. And it's one of these things where it's like, well, yeah, man, of course you need to get the Pro. You know, like, you run a PlayStation channel, you need to get the Pro. And so it just kind of creates this feeling of like, all right, well, then I don't even need to think about it. But what's interesting about you bringing this up, Lone Wolf Gamer, is I do think the Pro, see, for me, it's not so much about whether or not it's going to be worth it, because I do think that in the end, just again, in my opinion, the Pro will end up being worth it, because it's going to have more and more games getting enhanced. And it's a console that, if I do get it at launch, I'm going to be using for at least another 4 years, at the very least. So when I think of it from that perspective, it feels much easier to be like, yeah, I actually do want it, because those are two really good reasons. Like, I look at how much time I spent playing my current PS5, and it's crazy to me where it's like, yeah, I paid $500 for that. I got well beyond $500 out of this console, like well beyond it in terms of like value. And I suspect the same will be true for the PS5 Pro. However, I will say that I did come across the latest Digital Foundry video. And the latest Digital Foundry video for the PS5 Pro was about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And I'm not going to lie, not really sure what Sony's thinking here. You know, I know that they have to market the Pro, and I know that they believe they have to show off what their first party games are doing, but this was like the first. I know people were saying this about The Last of Us Part 2. I did see a difference in The Last of Us Part 2. It wasn't colossal, but it was noticeable in that they're like, you're going to get fidelity level, you know, visuals, sometimes even a little bit better, but at 60 FPS, at double the frame rate. I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. With the Ratchet and Clank comparison, though, I'm like, this one, now this is a hard sell. This is a very hard sell. It does look slightly better, but man, I really think this is one that Sony should have just kind of put on the back burner and not use as marketing, because I'll be honest, man, if this was the only game that I knew about right now, I would not buy the Pro, because I'm like, you can't really see much of, I mean, you can see like some slight improvements in the ray tracing, and, you know, it looks a little bit crispier, sure, at 60 FPS, but this is where I'm just like, I think that Insomniac did such a good job optimizing this game for the base PS5 that realistically there's only so much more they can squeeze out of it for the Pro. And I just feel like it would be so much wiser of Sony to just take a third-party game, like a popular third-party game that has had a little bit of a struggle, or not not the best looking performance mode, and give that to Digital Foundry. And maybe they will. Maybe they're waiting as they get closer to it. But yeah, I understand where people are coming from. Like, I'm somewhat torn on it. On one side, I am excited for what the PS5 Pro is, because I like the idea of just getting even better looking and running games on the PlayStation 5. Of course I like that idea. But I do also understand, like, because trust me, Sony's not giving me a free PS5 Pro. Like, if I buy the PS5 Pro, like, I'm also going to have to pay that $700, and that's a lot of money. That's money that I can't help but sometimes think to myself, like, would it, how many games, for example, could I buy instead, or something? Or, are there other things? Talk about like expenses. Like, yeah, dude, things are getting expensive. And these are just things that are definitely floating around in my mind while I look at this. But there's also, again, it's like, well, for me, I do have, if I want to use it as a reason, I am able to use it as a reason, even if it's for myself. I have the ability to say, well, dude, you do run a PlayStation YouTube channel. You buy this, you use it. I can be like, what I'm trying to say is I have the luxury, if you want to call it that, to be able to buy a PS5 Pro essentially guilt-free. But there is just that part of me that when I remove that, I don't know if maybe I would be more inclined to wait, because the thing about waiting is that you're going to get more out of it if you do decide to wait. I mean, I see people saying they're going to wait till the PlayStation 6, and I don't think that's a bad idea either. Right? Wait for the PlayStation 6 and get an even bigger upgrade, a much more substantial upgrade. However, even if you were to wait like 6 months or 9 months, maybe save up for it or something, that's still going to be a pretty good idea overall, because you're going to have even more games. And that's the thing. I try to also look a little bit into the future, into like 2025, as we were talking about all these different games coming out beyond 2025. Just thinking about games like GTA 6 and how all these games are likely to be PS5 Pro enhanced. And as these games become more taxing, as we get further into the generation, they're going to be pushing the hardware more and more. Chances are we will see the PS5 Pro flexing even harder, and doing even more for these games. So it's one of those things where I am convinced that, yeah, at some point, dude, you're going to want a PS5 Pro. Even if your like hype levels aren't 11 out of 10 right now, you're going to end up wanting it at some point, sooner probably rather than later. So just go for it. And again, I think about Metal Gear Solid Delta. That's going to be Pro enhanced. That's going to be a game I spend a lot of time with. So maybe I'm overthinking it, but it's because I do see, again, I see like this Digital Foundry video for Ratchet and Clank, and I'm like, I don't think I could blame anybody for watching that and being like, I don't think I want this, because it's like, yeah, it looks really good on the base PS5, like really, 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 really good in performance mode. Michael, you're saying, I don't know why you keep second guessing. You second guess on the Portal, and to this day, you still want one. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's where I say, like, Michael, the idea of buying a Portal, like, I am going to get one, but I just realized there's no rush for me to get one. Like, I'm totally okay just waiting till at just some point I just end up pulling the trigger, because a Portal is something that I know for a fact that even if I do enjoy using it, I'm not going to use it that often. That's what's different about the PS5 Pro is, if I buy a PS5 Pro, I'm using that pretty much every single day. Pretty much every single day. And that's going to be my source of gaming. And I game a lot. So it does, again, thinking about it on a deeper level, it does make me realize that I think there's a lot of good reasons for me to invest in a PS5 Pro. But I also completely understand, and I understand because sometimes I even feel like that occasionally, why some people are going to be like, you know what? I think I'm just going to hold off. I'm just going to hold off for right now. Champagne Picks says, only Metal Gear Solid game I played was Phantom Pain. Where's a good jumping on point for the series before Delta? Before Delta, I mean, honestly, your best bet would probably be to just play them in order. I mean, there is the Volume 1 collection that's out with Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3, and even the original Metal Gear games. I don't know that you have to play the original Metal Gear games. I don't know that would go that far, but they are there. But I'll be honest with you, Champagne Picks, Metal Gear Solid Delta is a great place to start. It's going to be really, really hard. I will say this. It's a great place to start story-wise, but man, if you were to play Metal Gear Solid Delta, because it's the first, it's like the first entry, technically, like from, when we're talking about the timeline, it's like the first kickoff to the story. I can't imagine playing Delta and then playing Metal Gear Solid 1 after that, or technically you would have to play the Phantom Pain after that, but then progressing like Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, like it's going to be really, really tough. So I guess the best recommendation would be the Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 1. If you're talking about before Delta. But yeah, we need a release date. We need to figure out what other games they're going to remake. JD Gamer, you're saying, I will be getting all of the new consoles, but I'm most interested in finding out what Xbox's new hardware strategy will be. Are we getting a powerful handheld and a powerful home console, or a hybrid? If I had to assume, I think it's going to be both. I think they're going to do a powerful home console, but also a standalone handheld. That'd be nuts. If Microsoft went for a hybrid approach, I'm going to be real with you. I think that would be just such a huge mistake, because it's like, I think the Switch 2 is it, like, at that point, Microsoft is saying, rather than competing with the PlayStation 6, we're going to compete with the Switch 2. And I think Microsoft loses that even worse. I could be wrong. Maybe there's something, maybe they'll have some kind of special, I don't know, some kind of ace up their sleeve. But I'm assuming it's going to be and I think that's what Sony's going to do too. I think they're both going to offer a powerful console, home console, and a relatively powerful handheld. And I think it's going to be just like a family of devices. Mike S says, oh, wait, damn. I only just realized my membership ran out. Disgusting behavior. Damn, bro. Guys, we got to help Mike S out. We need some membership gifts to see if he'll get one. We're going to have that thing happen where people drop like 80 membership gifts and Mike still doesn't get one. How much power can you put into a portable? I mean, it's definitely limited. It's definitely limited. Mike S is saying, no, I'll get my own. Oh, well, thank you. That's kind of you. It's cool. No pressure, man. No pressure, Mike. The thing I'm most interested in when it comes to Microsoft and Sony Next Gen at this point in time is I'm actually more interested in Microsoft Next Gen for the simple fact that it's clearly happening sooner. It's clearly happening sooner. Microsoft's going to be announcing Next Gen way sooner, I think, than Sony. I'm more excited about Sony overall and their Next Gen plans, but I also realize the Pro is just coming out now. There's probably gonna be a whole extra year or two, Microsoft seems to be ready to, hit the ground running in the next like year and a half or so. So very interested to see when that kicks off. All right. Let me see here. So I did want to go over this with you guys. It's basically the last topic we have. But something that it caught my eye. It's an opinion piece from Push Square. And they say the price of playing PS5 games day one is getting higher and higher. There was condemnation. Why can't I say that right? Condemnation. I think I'm saying that right. It's almost as I'm saying something else. Of the industry's decision, excuse me, I'm having like a stroke there, to transition to $70 new releases at the start of the PS5 generation. For many, this price point breaks a psychological barrier, with software simply too expensive to be justified. Some have argued that cartridge-based software in the 90s was actually more costly, especially when adjusted for inflation. Others have pointed out that budgets on AAA titles have exploded over the past decade. Either way, the prices are not coming down. In fact, they're quietly going up. But publishers are being sneaky about it. Many are now locking early access behind expensive Ultimate Editions of their games, pushing the price of a new release up to $100 or more. This is a trend we've noticed become increasingly common over the past few months, with titles like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero and Silent Hill 2 adopting it as recently as last week. Publishers sell the concept of early access, but really, you're paying extra to play on day one. In the case of Bandai Namco's aforementioned Anime Battler, it costs $100 to play the game 72 hours earlier than its official release date. To be fair, the Arena's Outings Deluxe Edition does also include a season pass, so you get added value beyond the early access, but this is the very definition of upselling, and consumers are showing up in droves. Prior to its standard edition releasing, almost 90,000 concurrent Steam players were logged in on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, confirming an enormous number of consumers had stumped up for the expensive early access. The publisher announced the game had sold through 3 million units within 24 hours of its official launch, but it's likely a large portion of those sales came from the Deluxe Edition and Ultimate Edition, which was available to play earlier. The thing is, this practice used to apply primarily to multiplayer games, but it's clear single-player titles are benefiting from the FOMO too. Silent Hill 2 was available 72 hours earlier for those who paid the extra $10, and currently, the first 2 chapters of Life is Strange Double Exposure are available to those who pay $80 for the game. Those willing to wait an extra 2 weeks to start the next leg of Max Caulfield's story will pay just $50. In both examples, additional content is included to sweeten the deal. Effectively, though, we're seeing the price of games almost double for those who want to play as early as possible, and it's working. Star Wars Outlaws is perhaps the most egregious recent example, as it charged $130 for early access to its sci-fi open world, and then forced fans to restart their progress on PS5 due to a bug. The game was ultimately unfinished and undercooked, with the publisher plotting a series of crucial patches to get it back on track. The French publisher has since said that everyone will be able to play Assassin's Creed Shadows on the same day, regardless of which version you buy. But this won't be the end of the practice. In fact, we're thinking it's going to get worse. Sony dabbled with the idea for its ill-fated Concord, and we doubt it'll be able to resist the temptation to upsell titles like Ghost of Yotei and Marvel's Wolverine when they eventually arrive. And then there's GTA 6. Rockstar will comfortably sell millions upon millions of copies at a significant markup with the promise of early access. Fans simply won't want to miss out, and thus the price of playing new games at launch is going up. Yes, it's still possible to sit on the sidelines with $70 pre-orders and wait 72 hours or more to play, but many value being part of the zeitgeist. There's an inherent need to be part of the conversation, and it's going to drive the price of playing your favorite games on launch day higher than it's ever been before. This is particularly sneaky because it's technically not a price increase at all, yet it uses FOMO to force players into spending as much as possible. Make no mistake, early access is not early access. It's the game's release date. If anything, the traditional $70 versions of titles are being delayed in order to upsell fans on expensive Ultimate Editions. Yes, they bundle in extra content, and anyone with a shred of self-discipline will resist, but it's clear that the tactic is working, and it's only going to get more and more common. How long before 72 hours becomes a week, becomes a month? And even if you personally refuse to pay, there are millions upon millions who will. So I had to talk to you guys about this. And Mike S., thank you so much, buddy. I'm sorry if I pressured you. I didn't mean to do that. Mike S. re-ups their membership to Play Has No Limits. So the higher tier as well. Thank you for that support, buddy. It says we're at 2 new members for the day, by the way, which is kind of weird because as far as I'm aware, this is the only membership we've gotten. So I don't know. I don't know why it says 2 there. I don't know if it counted maybe the milestone chat. But what did you guys think of this? What do you think of the idea of this is the way that publishers are actually increasing the price of games? Like it's not like technically a price increase, but it is becoming more common. And I saw this recently with Silent Hill 2, and it did kind of piss me off because I'm like, what the hell? And you know why? Because when I look at these like deluxe editions and these ultimate editions, I look at the content that's on offer, and I'm always okay with the idea of like, okay, you want to have a more expensive edition and you want to offer like digital content, and you want to upcharge for it. That's fine. The reason why I think that's fine is because if another person sees that digital content and they think that's worth it, that's for them to decide. You know, that's like, okay, that's all you, bro. Like if you think that digital content that they're charging you $10 or $20 more for is worth it, by all means, that's you. But that conversation changes when it's like, and you get early access. To me, that's kind of messed up because that's prying on something different. And Mike S. also drops a membership gift for you guys. Mike, thank you so much for the support today, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Capono was gifted as well. And Capono says, thank you, Mike. Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. So, believe it or not, that does bring us up to 2 members. Hey, man, it may not be a large number, but I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support you guys show. Let me just update this. Good stuff, bro. The FOMO hits hard. That's what I'm talking about, man. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The FOMO is preying on people's emotions. It's preying on the human condition. And Hellbound 1981 comes in and drops another 5-bomb. Hellbound with the 5-bomb. Hellbound the legend. Thank you so much, Hellbound. Really appreciate that, bro. Hellbound, I'm going to give you this one because I know it's in the name of boss. You know what's funny? Speaking of boss, dude, this cat, he was always very, very, very quiet. Always quiet. He hardly ever meowed. He hardly ever made any sounds. That all changed when we got Luna. Now dude, not every couple of minutes, but like every few hours, I just hear him walking around the house and he's just doing this high-pitched like growl. It's not like it's not a low-pitched one. If you've seen like cats, like cat fight videos or whatever, when they get in each other's faces and they make that really high-pitched like growling, like warning sound, this is what he does, bro. He just walks around making that sound, hissing everywhere. I swear this cat didn't know how to hiss until Luna came in. And I realized why he's like this with Luna. The reason why Boss is like this with Luna is because Luna, she is not intimidated in the least by Boss. And it's quite funny. Like, she seemingly is the alpha. She has no fear, and she fucks with them, dude. Like, boss just straight up gets pissed off. She'll just go up to him and try to, like, bat him and stuff. And I guess boss, he feels, like, genuinely threatened. Like, I don't think she's actually trying to hurt him, but I think he feels genuinely threatened. You wouldn't know it, though. But Hellbound, thank you so much for the membership gifts, man. That brings us up to 8 on the day. So, guys, by all means, if you want to continue to contribute with the member goal here, we'll see if we can get to 25. I don't know that I'm going to be streaming too long today, but we still got a little bit of time. We'll see if we can get there. Waylark, you're saying if GTA charges $100 for early access, everyone is paying. Yeah, you know they're going to. You definitely know they're going to. And I agree. Everybody is going to be paying. I do think, Waylark, that this is the way that Take-Two Interactive is going to charge $100 for GTA 6. Because there was that rumor that it was going to be like $150. And I'm like, they're probably going to have an edition that's $150. And they'll probably make that edition early access. But yeah, it's disheartening because I feel that too, you know. It was really hard with Silent Hill 2 to not, you know, to not give in. But I'm like, okay, this definitely goes against everything, right? Like, I would have to not only buy the game digitally, but I'm going to pay. And because, like, that's the thing I wanted to focus on here. Most people, let's face it, when a publisher says, we want you to pay $80 and you get this digital content, we also get 3 days early access. Let's face it, 90% of the people paying that extra 10 or 20 bucks for the deluxe edition are paying for the early access. And that's what I don't like about it. And the publishers know this, and this is why it's becoming more and more common. And I think, to me, that's just so cheap. You know, like, why not actually make the digital deluxe version better? Make the content feel more valuable. But instead, they're like, nah, we'll just mess with your time. How about that? Like, oh, okay, thanks, appreciate that. But it is true; it is becoming a more common practice, and I don't think that's a good thing. And JD Gamer comes in and drops a membership gift. JD Gamer keeping the member train going today. Thank you for that, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, guys, keep in mind, as you can see, dropping single membership gifts helps as well. Doesn't always have to be 5 or 10 or 20 bombs or anything like that. Singles definitely help. So JD Gamer brings us up to 9 on the day. And I should say as well, anybody who received the membership gift or who re-upped their membership, go check out the latest Members Lounge. We did, I think it was Monday. Yeah, I think we did it on Monday. It was a good one. It was a long episode. It was almost 2 hours. And the feedback I got, people really enjoyed it. So thank you again, JD Gamer. And we have Steranko. He uses his milestone chat and says, hey, MBG, do you see any way Xbox can get competitive again? Well, I do think Xbox is being competitive. Will there be reps? I reserve reps for when we hit 50 members. Although I've been slacking lately. I haven't been feeling too good lately. That's why. I've been sick. Something's going on. But if we do hit 50 members, I will do reps. But, we got a ways to go. We got nearly 40, 41. No, I appreciate that. But you never know, right? But Steranko, I do think Xbox is competing. I just think they're competing indirectly. I think that I've made the mistake in the past of trying to frame it as if Microsoft is not competing, but I realize that the framing of that is within the context of just the console market. And I do think that in the console market, Microsoft basically they're not an aggressive competitor any longer. And I think they've made that clear. But I do think Microsoft is still fighting for different territory and different ground. And when I see the way their approach is, I guess, kind of unfolding before us, especially now that we're getting close to the launch of Black Ops 6, cloud, Game Pass being on many devices, expanding Xbox to as many devices and places as possible, still doubling down on Game Pass, trying to charge more now for Game Pass, trying to extract more money from customers who are going to come to Game Pass. It's very clear that they're still competing at the end of the day for the same thing that Sony wants. Because make no mistake, these companies want the same thing. They want people's time, attention, and their money. Keeping them engaged, keeping their attention on you, on your ecosystem, on your platform, that usually leads to extracting more money from that customer. And they want to get you deeply invested. And this is something that I think some PlayStation fans don't like to hear, but it is a truth. And it should be obvious by now, but it will become more obvious. As even though the console is still the priority for Sony, seemingly, make no mistake, they are planning to expand in a similar way. I'm not going to say the same way, because right now it doesn't seem like they're anywhere near as aggressive as Microsoft is in this space. But in a similar way, Sony wants to start branching the brand out and expanding horizontally, so that way they don't completely end up conceding that ground unknowingly, if that makes sense. Because if what Microsoft is pursuing ultimately does work in the long run, Sony doesn't want to be a day late and a dollar short. If anything, they want to be right there if that transition happens. It's kind of like when we talked about PlayStation Plus and PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium. It's kind of how I said, it's clear to me Sony's not going to do day and date games. But if Game Pass explodes and Sony starts losing customers to Xbox because of Game Pass at a rapid rate, Sony will be ready to make the pivot. We have our own service. We have no choice now. We got to pull the trigger and start putting our games there. But they didn't have to, because, Microsoft's strategy didn't really pick up the way that Microsoft thought it would. And Sony was probably like, okay, we held, and it's a good thing we held. JD Gamer, you're saying, if it's about the games, then yes, Xbox can be competitive, actually more so than their competition when they get their cadence right. Xbox has more studios and developers than the other platforms combined. Yeah, JD Gamer, I'll say that to me is something that I'm in agreement that, generally speaking, Microsoft has the army, so to speak, right? Like, they have just the sheer, I don't know, volume, where it's like, yeah, in the gaming space, they have the power, and they are now. I mean, look at Black Ops 6, right? It's about to come out. They have the power to be a force, like a real driving force. But when we talk about that in the framing of competition, that's where I'm in wait and see mode. Because on one hand, if Microsoft went exclusive with, like, let's say 90% of their upcoming games over the next, like, 5 years, that's going to raise Microsoft up to being a serious competitor to Sony, just in terms of sheer volume, right? The quality, I mean, it's hard to predict that, but you would assume the quality would increase as well, or at least that's what people would hope. And it's not that, I don't think Sony's quality would decrease. I mean, it's more about, again, the volume. Like, Microsoft has so many studios and so many games, but that's the thing, is we don't yet know truly what Microsoft's plans are from a multi-platform perspective. We know Call of Duty, multi-platform. We know Indiana Jones, multi-platform. We know that Sea of Thieves came over. We know these things. But when it comes to the more, I would say, vital games, that's the wrong word to use. Call of Duty is vital, but the more traditional games that you would expect to be exclusive, Gears, and Doom, by the way, is also PS5, right? But you think about like Doom, or sorry, not Doom. You think about Fable. You think about the next Forza Horizon, whenever that's going to be coming. You think about Gears. You think about Halo and the rebranding of Halo Studios. Like, you think about these titles and you ask yourself, like, South of Midnight, like, if these games, is Microsoft going to weaponize these games or not? Because that's real. When we talk about competing, like, that's really what we need to ask ourselves. Are they going to be used as, weapons essentially against whoever they feel they're competing with? And right now, I think Xbox is in this weird state where if you say yes, they will, you might be right. If you say no, they won't, you might be right. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I think no matter what, at the end of the day, there is a very baseline competition. And that baseline competition will persist regardless, even if Sony went full multi-platform, right? There is a baseline competition that Sony wants your money and they want as much of it as they can get. So does Microsoft. How are they going to go about getting all that money from you? That's all that's going to change. Right now, Sony has a pretty good thing going. They're getting your money through the console. They're getting your money through the games you're buying for the console. They're getting your money through the microtransactions people are buying through the games on the console. They're getting your money through the subscription services. They're getting your money through the accessory purchases. They're getting your money through all these different vectors. And Microsoft is too, just on a smaller scale. But that's where, like, when people say, well, PlayStation's basically going to be funding Microsoft now. Yes. But the reason why Sony's okay with that is because Microsoft's not telling Sony, you're going to fund us and get nothing for it. No, they're telling you, you're going to fund us and you're going to continue to be able to do what you do with no real changes. And if you're Sony, there's probably a part of Sony that's a little bit worried about the potential long-term implication. But realistically, it's like, Sony, if you have to choose between that and losing Call of Duty, not that they could make that choice, but realistically, which one is the better deal here? Like, which one's going to be in your best interest? It's kind of obvious. So, I'm getting a little too in the weeds here, but generally speaking, the competition, I think, let me back up here and collect my thoughts. Going forward, I think it would be a good thing for us as, gamers who pay very close attention to PlayStation and Sony and Microsoft at times, and the competition and the way the market shifts and the way it's changing. I think from this point forward, it would be a really wise thing for us to establish a baseline. And that baseline, like I said, is Sony and Microsoft, at the end of the day, will always be competitors as long as they are both producing video games. And that is the most reductive baseline I could come up with. Do I believe that Sony and Microsoft in the gaming space are going to be reduced to just that anytime soon, if ever? No. But I think it's important to bring it down to that. So that way, no matter what happens at the end of the day, and it will serve as a reminder for me as well, that there is still competition. It's just transforming before our eyes. And the one other thing I'll add to this is that one company right now seemingly two companies are betting on the console hardware and the console model. The third company is not. The third company is practically betting against it. Not entirely against it, but certainly they're not trying to be saved by it. And that, I think, is what makes the dynamic that we see right now truly intriguing. It's that you have two companies that, let's face it, if the Switch 2 failed and the PlayStation 6 failed, both Sony and Nintendo would be forced to completely transform their business models. And they would be unrecognizable from that moment forward. But that requires the failure of the Switch 2 and the PlayStation 6. And this is why when I talked about Xbox setting themselves up for a win-win no matter what, well, what happens when the Xbox console fails to a degree that it forces the company to change their business model? Oh, wait, that already happened. So their business model is already transformed. It's already going in a different direction. And I think really what it boils down to is, if you think about it, the push and pull we see between the two communities these days, Xbox fans and PlayStation fans clashing and arguing, what is it really about? And I think at the end of the day, it's about whether or not the traditional console model is going to persist or not. Whether or not Microsoft made the right move by essentially putting their console in the back seat in favor of a subscription service and publishing. And I think maybe what I, as well as other people, should try to do is realize that realistically, both things are perfectly fine by themselves. Realistically, what Microsoft is doing, while there is still that baseline competition, is likely not going to have a tangible impact on what Sony is doing. And it's kind of interesting to see how things are unfolding, because you could even make the argument at this point that the most damage that has been done to Sony PlayStation in the year 2024 was done by themselves, to themselves. Right? When we look at like the most negative things that have caused the most outrage and backlash, literally all coming from Sony's own decisions. Meanwhile, Microsoft, to be fair, I'm not saying Microsoft has been perfect or anything, but Microsoft has just basically they've taken a very, very, very passive approach. And in terms of the bottom line, I don't know how much that's benefited them. But in terms of public perception, it certainly has, which has been very surprising to me. Truthfully, I didn't expect that when Microsoft took this more relaxed, passive approach, I thought they would get more kind of backlash for that. And that's why when I look back at February of this year, people were going nuts on Microsoft, dude. And there was one moment this year where people were suplexing Microsoft, and it was when the reports came out that basically made it sound like they gave up on gaming. They're done. They're exiting the console market. They're done. They're just going to be a bland, boring publisher now, and it's over. And I saw the way it unfolded, where Microsoft came out and said, no, that's not true. We're just bringing 4 games over. And that changed everything. From that moment forward, people were almost like, oh, this is a good thing. And it was just so fascinating to me, because I'm like, it felt, I don't know if Microsoft was purposely stoking that fire. It's almost like Microsoft created the fire themselves, and then they kept pouring gasoline on that fire without anybody knowing, to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. and more intense, to then come in and they were the ones who put the fire out. And it's like, see, we got it, guys. You could thank us later. Like, you could thank us for putting that fire out. And people are like, yeah. It was just such an interesting thing to witness, because it was like, it really, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying it was just it was like whiplash, where like one day people fucking hate Microsoft and everybody's losing their minds. And then the next day, everybody's like, actually, I think everything's fine. So whereas with Sony, it has not really been like that. With Sony, it's just been like, I don't know, man. These days when Sony steps on a rake, it's like they're stepping on 3 rakes at once. Anyway, let me read these super chats. I apologize. I'm just like going on and on here. Michael Lynch says, I think the only true way to compete against Sony is for Xbox to make similar quality games. I don't think their developers are as talented. And then JD Gamer responds, oh, hold on. JD Gamer responds with a super chat to Michael Lynch saying, when we talk about quality, if this was 5 years ago, I'd agree with you, but not now. PlayStation is out of touch a la Concord. More studios/devs equals more time, and that equals better quality. And Michael Lynch also responds to JD Gamer by saying, JD Gamer, you can't just put out one example and say Sony lost their way. There are way more examples of Sony putting out great quality. It's interesting because when I see you guys kind of having this conversation and this back and forth, I think what I'm seeing here is that there's truth with both sides. Like, there's truth with what Michael's saying, but there's also truth to what JD Gamer's saying. But I think it's about adding more to it, where it's like, Michael, you're saying that you think the only way Microsoft can truly compete with Sony is by making similar quality games. And I do think that there is a truth to that. I think that, when we look at the Xbox showcase this year, people were loving it. I mean, they, like, from what I could tell, like, they won people back, man. People were very happy. And I tried to, of course I come off as like a naysayer, but I was trying to tell people, well, we have to be careful, because most of the games, if not all of the games that Microsoft showed from their studios, we really still don't know yet. Like, I'm not saying approach it with bad faith, but just remain a bit skeptical. And I did say this earnestly. I said, I don't know that you should give Microsoft the benefit of the doubt yet. I think that they still have to earn that. And I think the way that they earn that is by showing, like, hey, those games that we had in development for like 4 or 5 years, and we spent like the past 4 or 5 years kind of hyping up. Now they're out, and then boom, they're out and they're getting good reviews and people are loving it and the fans are happy. It's like, okay, you did it. You did the job and you did it well. And I think at that point, you now earn not only won a lot of people back, but you earned goodwill. You earned the benefit of the doubt from a lot of people. That's exactly what Sony did last generation. And that's why it's so crazy to see some of the decisions that Sony has made, because Sony did that thing. And that's a hard, difficult, challenging thing to do, to earn the benefit of the doubt and the goodwill from the customer and the fans. And Sony spent all PS4 generation doing that. And they haven't like tarnished it completely at all. I think people who say that are being a bit overly dramatic, but there's no doubt that some of that goodwill has been lost, certainly. And that's where I think Sony, when people talk about the idea of arrogant Sony, that's the part that worries me. It's like, Sony, you please don't underestimate the goodwill of the fans and the goodwill of the gamer, because once that starts happening, once you underestimate that or just don't care about that, it can go downhill very quickly. And I'm not saying we're there. I'm just saying that, like what JD Gamer is pointing out here, and I'll read this too. JD Gamer also responds to Michael Lynch, and he says, The Last of Us released without factions, the whole PlayStation login for Helldivers mess, raising the cost of PS Plus with no added benefits, etc. And so, what I will say here is that those are all things that I do agree with you, JD Gamer. They're very bad things. Like, none of those things are good. And those things that you just listed, I would say, and you throw Concord on there, those are things that actively take away the goodwill that Sony has built up for themselves. But we also have to acknowledge that there are many good things as well. A lot of positive things that Sony has done. That, again, this is why when I talked about earlier, it seems like Sony's like one step forward, one step back, one step forward, one step back, where it's like you think about everything that happened at the beginning of this generation and in between these announcements, or these things that seemingly hurt the PlayStation branding and reputation and pissed off consumers in some way. They're also doing these good things in between, and in some cases, really good things in between. And this is why I think a lot of people have found my stance when I would tell people, like, I'm actually pretty happy with PlayStation. A lot of people, I think, would be like, well, that's just because you're a fanboy. And it's like, well, when I go in depth and I explain that there are things that Sony has done that I've gravitated towards, that I've enjoyed. And this is why I try my best to, I know I've been doing a bad job recently, but I try to better understand the truth. Somebody left a comment on, I think, my last stream, and they were like, MBG, you do realize that, there are like fanboys on both sides, and like really rabid fanboys on both sides. And they're always going to be arguing with one another and constantly trying to move the goalposts. And I get that. That's a truth too. And I think sometimes I do get wrapped up in that. And I don't like getting wrapped up in that, because I realize, like, it takes me too far away from what I'm actually trying to achieve here, which is an honest assessment of a PlayStation, and the not just PlayStation, but the console gaming landscape as well. Michael, you're saying I'm specifically only talking about the quality of the game. I'm not including some of the decisions on certain games that Sony makes. Well, I will tell you this, Michael. In a conversation like this, when we seemingly reach an impasse in terms of opinion, or I guess you could say what we think, right? I think this, you think that, they think this, we think that. And there doesn't seem to be an easy answer. Well, I think the best thing to do at that point is, like I always say, well, let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the data. What does the data tell us? The data tells me that Sony is achieving something with their games that Microsoft has not. And that data, simply put, does come in the form of sales. Now, granted, Microsoft does have Game Pass, and they have day one Game Pass releases. So because of that, it's kind of made the water very murky and difficult to truly read. Okay, well, is a game not selling well on Xbox because it's on Game Pass, or because it was just never going to sell well on Xbox in general? And that's where things get a bit confusing. But I do think there is more that we can look at to kind of help give us our answer. Well, when we look at, and this isn't, it's not a pissing contest thing. I want to make that clear. It's not about being a fanboy. It's about just being objective about it. Objectively speaking, when we look at the data, PlayStation has more console sales, substantially more. When we look at the data, PlayStation has more subscribers. Now, granted, that might change very soon, thanks to Call of Duty entering Game Pass, but for now, they still have more subscribers, even without day one releases on their service. They sell millions upon millions of copies of their games at full price on their platform without putting them on Game Pass, or Game Pass, without putting them on Game Pass, without putting them on PlayStation Plus. And essentially, Sony, they're extracting what they need to in order to continue to grow. Except their profit margins. Their profit margins are still struggling, and that's a whole nother conversation. But if we just look at the numbers, Microsoft, on the other hand, they want growth, obviously, but their game, you know, their Game Pass subscription service, the growth has not been what it should be, what it needed to be. Their games, well, let's be honest. I mean, Game Pass was created because their games would not sell anywhere near what they needed to. Excuse me, to justify, the level of investment that they were making. And same with the consoles. And when we look at this stuff, we need to ask ourselves, like, why? Just, okay, we see the data, we see the numbers. Like, one is achieving growth, or, much more growth. One is selling games at, millions and millions of copies at full price. One is, I will say this, I think we're about to see a shift, and this is going to be fascinating to watch. I know I'm getting a little bit away from the data talk, but I think in the next year we're going to see Game Pass eclipse PlayStation Plus. And I am going to be very, very, very interested to see how Sony reacts to that. Because this entire time, Sony was able to kind of fend off the subscription model pressure, because they're like, well, look, we're selling our games and our subscription service is doing better than them. How is that going to... The reason why I think that's going to happen is because I think PlayStation Plus has been going down. Sony stopped revealing their PlayStation Plus numbers. It's obvious why they did that. It's because they're losing subs. And they seemingly reached a peak of like 48, 49 million. I'm not saying I'm like fully expecting Game Pass to eclipse PS Plus, but I'm saying, like, the reality is Call of Duty could have an unprecedented impact on Game Pass subscriber growth. That's absolutely what Microsoft is hoping for. It might not. I'm sure if Game Pass like barely moves at all after Call of Duty goes on there, dude, Microsoft is going to be sitting there like, they're going to be like, oh man, we really thought, and it'll be fine. Like, they'll survive that, obviously, but make no mistake, like, the bet right now is Call of Duty day one, Game Pass, Black Ops, brand name, this is what's going to do it. And there is a possibility that in the next 12 to 16 months, people could be subscribing for this shit, man. And they could be doing it in droves. And if they do, I don't know. It'll be really interesting if the day comes, maybe by late 2025, early 2026, Microsoft announces that their earnings, like, we've hit like 50 million subs. Again, I'm not saying that that's likely. I'm just saying it's a possibility, because we don't know. If they were to do that, I mean, you can't help but wonder, like, what does Sony do in that moment? Do they just say, whatever, we've been there already? Like, we already achieved that without day one releases, without putting Call of Duty on Game Pass or on PS Plus? Or does that have a significant impact on, like, okay, we got to, like, start taking Game Pass as a more serious threat now? You get what I'm saying? It's at that point where you think they say whatever. Yeah, they could. They could. But you see, think about this for a moment, though. Imagine Microsoft achieves some kind of big milestone number like that. Really quick, you're saying, so what's next if Call of Duty Black Ops 6 doesn't make a difference? Can we call Xbox a failure then? Well, I'll be honest with you. Xbox can't fail. And I say that in a way that, like, listen, when Microsoft paid, and this, some people might say this isn't fair, but it's like, dude, it's business, it's capitalism. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. When Microsoft paid $69 billion, they ensured that the Xbox brand is not going. It depends on what you consider fail, right? Like, would Game Pass be a failure? Probably. If Call of Duty didn't move numbers or do numbers on Game Pass, and it didn't move the needle in a significant way after like 2 or 3 years, Microsoft is going to very likely, I don't want to say throw in the towel, but they're going to have to pivot where they're like, yeah, this isn't the way forward. Like, clearly, if Call of Duty can't do it, nothing else will. And the console, by that point, you have to imagine, is not likely to see a massive uptick. So what does Microsoft do then? I think it's fairly obvious. They say, well, we're just a third-party publisher now. Like, full-blown. And you see what I'm saying? Where it's like, they definitely don't lose by doing that. We could say at that point Game Pass is a failure. We could say their attempt at success in the console space is a failure. But we will not be able... Microsoft ensured that when they bought Activision Blizzard and Bethesda, we're not going to be able to call Xbox a failure because they're going to make bank one way or another. And that's why I think I mean, they could, at the end of the day, they could. I'll say this last thing. The only way outside of that I think Microsoft in the gaming sector truly fails is if Call of Duty fails. If Call of Duty, or like something like the Elder Scrolls 6 as well, like if these major like tentpole pillar franchises in the next like 5 to 8 years just begin to crumble and nothing Microsoft does is like saving them, then we will have a different conversation. But that same thing could happen to Sony at any moment. You know, like no publisher is immune to this. We've seen this happen before where, you know, you give it enough time and you see what you thought was once a foundational pillar franchise, studio, whatever, and they just 10 years goes by, 15 years goes by, and you look back and you're like, what the hell happened? And they're just like gone. It's just over. And that's the nature of this stuff, you know. It's very unpredictable. But getting back to the original conversation here, I think at the end of the day, there is something that Microsoft has yet to achieve. And I am in agreement that it's not that their games are bad all the time or anything like that. Like, people have criticized me. We're like, bro, the way you talk about like Halo and the way you talk about some of these Xbox games, I apparently come off fanboyish because I make it sound like these games are literal like trash, like dumpster fire, like 4 out of 10 level games. And you know, somebody was like pointing out in one of my more recent streams, they're like, bro, like Halo Infinite has a higher Metacritic than like Ghost of Tsushima. And you know, it's like, I get what you're saying. Like, I get what you're saying. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I don't know that that is representative of the reality. I don't know that like these Metacritic scores are representative of the actual reality and like what people really think. But it's true. It's like, yeah, I don't want to make it sound, I don't want to come off fanboyish that way, in the sense that like for example, Starfield, right? Like, Starfield is, from what I can tell, well, I'll be honest, maybe that's a bad example. People have really ripped into Starfield. And I can't speak to it. I don't know. I don't know if Starfield would be considered trash or not. I haven't played it. I'm just saying that, like, I understand there are audiences for these games. And I try to be a little bit more understanding that there are games that I've been a fan of that don't have the biggest audience, or like don't have, you know, like some people maybe have like somewhat negative opinions on or whatever. And I don't want to like be that person that's being completely unfair, you know? But at the same time, I'm not trying to empower fanboys on the other side by being like, yeah, you're right, man. Like Halo Infinite has a higher score than Ghost of Tsushima on Metacritic, therefore it's objectively better. Like, no. Just no. Like Halo, I'm sorry, like if this upsets some Xbox fans, but I just gotta speak what I believe is the truth. And like, no, Halo Infinite is not a better game than Ghost of Tsushima. I'm not saying these are two games that should even really be compared, but it's like if we're gonna throw up Metacritic scores, I'm gonna tell you like I'm pretty sure Ghost of Tsushima runs laps around Halo Infinite. Just in terms of, you're saying we believe the contrary. That's shocking to me though. But I try to understand that. I don't know, but I don't know. Is that true though? I mean, at this point, I think we're kind of like, I'm trying to split hairs, in terms of trying to determine like the objective real truth here. When at the end of the day, it just boils down to what I've always said. And even I lose sight of what I say. And that is that, bro, one person's trash is another man's treasure. And I'm not trying to say that Ghost of Tsushima is trash. It's not at all. But and some people might interpret that as me saying Halo Infinite is trash. But it's just simply trying to put out there that people like what they like. And I'll be honest too, though, because I feel like I'm having this revelation right now. One of the things I really don't like, and I've never liked, but I think I see it more often than I realize, is this notion that if something is popular, and I think I'm very guilty of this at times, and I don't mean to be, because like I'm just like not looking at it through this lens, but just because something is the most popular or the most known or the best selling doesn't make it the best. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to also be a contrarian either. I'm not trying to be the person, I'm just going to root for the underdog for the sake of rooting for the underdog. I think it's just, I think there are a lot of people doing these things. There are a lot of people rooting for things just because they are perceived as the best. There are a lot of people who are stomping on things because they're perceived as the worst. Or there are a lot of people cheering things on that are actually bad. Like, when I say bad, I mean just things that are like really not very good. Like, even from an objective standpoint. And there are people who are like, no, we should rally behind this because, we're contrarians. We don't go with the flow. I think we got to like remove all that. And you remove all that. Michael's saying, yeah, look at the state of today's music. Oof, don't remind me. And Michael, I'm sorry to keep you waiting with your super chat. You're saying here, Microsoft keeping Xbox alive because they are rich is the same as the NBA keeping the WNBA alive with all of their money. Interesting. It's an interesting comparison. Well, I will say this, Michael. Here's where I will push back ever so slightly against this comparison. The one thing that is very different, I will say, in this comparison is that the gaming industry is not comparable to anything else out there. And I'm not speaking from like a philosophical standpoint where it's like you can't compare games to movies. No, I mean literally from a monetary potential standpoint. Not even potential, but just an objective monetary standpoint. And like, so how much money is flowing through the games industry? Nothing touches it. Sports, music, movies, anything, TV, nothing. No other forms of entertainment really come close to touching how much money is flowing through the games industry right now. And the reason why I think that's important to highlight, Michael, is because it explains why these companies are willing to go so far out of their way, like Microsoft is. Like, dude, that's why Microsoft was only willing to spend nearly $70 billion, which is, again, an incomprehensible amount of money. They were only willing to do that because they understood, like, dude, look at this ocean of money around us. And it's not our money. But how much of it can we get? Like, let's go. Let's go. Let's dive in. Let's see what we can get. The pie, maybe a better, more apt analogy is look at this pie. Look at how big this pie is. Look at how big it is. And look at how small our sliver is. How do we get more of this pie? I want more of this pie. Bring me more of this pie. And that's the thing, man. Look at that pie. That pie is bigger than any other pie around it by like 10 times. And that's basically what we're seeing, man. And that's why, like, I do agree to an extent that if it wasn't for Microsoft watching over Xbox, which they're supposed to, they're their parent company, but if it wasn't for Microsoft intervening and really getting involved in a meaningful way, Xbox would have died, I think, a couple of times now. And I say that like not in any type of exaggerated way. Like I mean legitimately, after the Xbox One and, going into the Series X generation and seeing that Game Pass numbers were stagnating somewhat, I think that there are moments where if Microsoft did not directly intervene, Xbox genuinely either would have died or been completely, somebody else would have purchased. Like if they were independent, somebody would have bought them and completely transformed them. And so I guess the way we could look at it is Microsoft really was not anywhere near as hands-on with the Xbox brand for the last like 20 years or like 18 years or whatever. But really once it became clear that like they're not really producing the results that you need to justify their existence, it then becomes like, all right, well, let we're going to get involved now. We're going to get hands-on. We're going to start running the ship. And that's why I think when you think about like PlayStation and you think about Xbox, PlayStation seems to be like way more secretive about like what's going on behind the scenes. Like I've gotten the feeling with PlayStation this year and even last year that there was a lot of like turmoil internally at Sony and PlayStation leadership. A lot of turmoil. But we really don't hear anything. We don't really get any reports. We rarely do. And it's just very quiet, generally speaking. But with Xbox, dude, I feel like when there's turmoil within Microsoft and Xbox, like everybody knows about it. Like it's literally being reported on by every Xbox outlet. And there's constantly like reports and telling us like this and that and that and this. And you just like even this year, like or recently, there was like this interview done or this like there was some kind of write-up on like Sarah Bond where it literally talked about how her and Phil Spencer like clash because they just have very different leadership styles and they like don't see eye to eye on many things or at least some things, and they've had to like work on that. And I'm like, how do we know that? You know what I mean? Like we just hear about these things, and I feel like you kind of have this idea that Microsoft, generally speaking, is just kind of much more transparent. Sometimes it works against them, but they're just much more like they almost like don't care. Where it's like, yeah, our emails are gonna leak and shit, and this is it. We're just trying to figure it out as we're going. To whereas I think Sony, they don't like that. Sony very much, they want to be very buttoned up. I think Sony, they care very much about looking like they absolutely know what they're doing. And that's what makes the failure of Concord all the worse. But many times I think that works in their favor, where like that's kind of, you could say there's an arrogance to that, but I don't know. I think I'm kind of going in a different direction now. I've been talking for too long. But American company versus Japanese company. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, to be honest, I kind of wish in some ways that we did have a better understanding of I wish we did have a better understanding of like what was going on behind the scenes at Sony. That's why like that Concord report from Colin Moriarty was so fascinating, because it's like we never hear about stuff like this. That's why when we were hearing a little bit from Jason Schreier about Naughty Dog and The Last of Us, and it's just like, even then, it feels like we're getting just scraps, just like very, like we're looking through just like a little pinhole and we could barely see anything. But I would just love to know more about what's actually going on. But yeah, they are ultimately a Japanese company, as you're saying, Josh. Very picky and secretive. But yeah, I gotta admit, man. As we get closer to Black Ops 6, I know I'm throwing this in there kind of randomly, but we brought it up. I feel like I'm getting a little bit more excited. I'm feeling it. I don't know. It's been a long time since I felt like a Call of Duty launch, and I was struggling with the beta. I'm not gonna lie, but Zombies looks pretty fun. Campaign looks like it's gonna be pretty good. I think I'll enjoy the multiplayer. I think I'm feeling it. But Paul, you're saying your excitement has been deflated, but you'll still play it. You know what I want to know? Yeah, Max Payne of Duty. Let's go. I want to know, are they bringing back third-person mode? I know you could play zombies in third person, but are they bringing back like an actual third-person competitive mode? Because that shit was fun, dude. Felt like SOCOM. Somewhat. Like a, not, a much less tactical version of SOCOM. But yeah, I don't think they're enhancing it for the Pro, dude. I don't think they are. Either that or they're like taking their good old time with it, maybe. Truthfully, they're probably just trying to get everything sorted for launch, if I had to guess. Because, I mean, say what you will about Call of Duty. I mean, they make sure every year you got 3 offerings, Zombies, multiplayer, campaign. Except that one year with Black Ops 4. But saying the Pro should just improve the resolution and FPS via brute force. Yeah, did we ever get any confirmation on like the resolution and frame rate for Black Ops 6 on these consoles? I don't think we've heard anything. Isn't it required to support the Pro now? I don't know, man. I keep seeing people saying that, but I don't know if Black Ops maybe missed the cut or something, because they haven't said anything. Maybe it will be. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be secretly enhanced or something when it comes out. Like, oh, okay. I'm sure Digital Foundry will test it out and analyze it. See, if it's a dynamic resolution, the Pro should just, like you said, kind of brute force it to a higher res. If there are like areas, if the frame rate struggles in some areas, it should be able to stabilize it. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm starting to feel it as we get closer to launch. I don't know. I've just been kind of itching for a shooter. I just realized Mrs. MBG informed me that my member goal was actually misspelled. Member, become a member. All right, there we go. I still spelled it wrong. Oh my god, what is wrong with? Help me, guys! I spelled it wrong twice. I don't know what's going on. I'm not well today. Let's see. There we go. Now it's spelled right. Now it's spelled right. Does the speedrun DLC have new trophies? We were talking about that earlier. I don't know. They didn't confirm or deny whether or not there are new trophies. Wow, thanks, Frank. It's okay. You're American. We understand. I don't know that I take offense to that, truthfully. I don't. The more I think about it, I definitely don't. Dude, I was scrolling through Twitter this morning and I saw a post from God. The account is just named God, verified and all. And it just said, I genuinely don't remember making you this stupid. I genuinely don't remember making you all this stupid. And I was laughing. I'm like, damn. I'm like, what am I reading right now? What is happening? Now, let me actually fix this, though. Well, let me see here. JD Gamer. Bro, thank you so much, man. JD Gamer drops another single membership gift for you guys. That's 2 from JD Gamer today. And that brings us up to 10 members, guys. We're probably going to be wrapping up the stream soon, okay? We're going to be wrapping it up soon, so I want to encourage you guys. See if you can get a little train going. Not a big deal if we can't. I don't want people to perceive it as like begging. I'm not begging or anything. I just try to encourage the audience, that's all. Sometimes that's all it takes. Just a little encouragement. But JD Gamer, thank you so much, bro. You brought us up to 10 members. We're 15 away, guys. We're 15 away from potentially hitting the goal, feeding the beast. Don't make me beg. I'll beg if I have to. I'm just kidding. MBG, if you control the many through propaganda. Also, if you read this, then Shadow Link. Did you guys see this? You see this situation with that streamer Asmongold or whatever? I just saw this article from Insider Gaming. It says Asmongold steps back from OTK and Starforge as he admits his life is in shambles. He revealed he's cutting down I think he got like banned on Twitch recently for what was taken as like hate speech. I'm not gonna go into the reasoning why, because it's very touchy subject, but man, that escalated quickly. And Shadow Link, bro, he comes in, he drops another 5-bomb on you guys. Shadow Link wants to keep the member train going. Thank you so much, Shadow Link. That's very kind of you, man. That brings us up to 15 members. Shadow Link sets it up. If somebody wants to take it home, 10-bomb does it. 10-bomb does it. But thank you so much, Shadow Link. I do appreciate the support, guys. It really does mean a lot. Shadow Link says, well, I did say if you read my message. I got you, Shadow Link. I got you. I do appreciate all the support, though, for real, guys. I've not been feeling too great lately. I don't know if it's a virus or what, but if you were watching my members lounge, I was basically telling you that I've been having like severe acid reflux. That's like crazy. Like I'm actually going to the doctor, I think tomorrow, to see him about it, because it's just, I think everybody experiences like occasional acid reflux and whatnot. But dude, something happened in like September. I don't know, just like the end of September. 1 week goes by, it's like every day I'm having like bad acid reflux. 2 weeks goes by, it's getting even worse. 3 weeks goes by, it's getting worse. I'm to a point where I'm basically taking over-the-counter medication now to try to control it, because it's like destroying me. And I'll see what the doctor says. Maybe see less tomatoes. Oh yeah, dude, I've been trying to watch my diet for sure. No tomatoes, Nothing that could make more acid or make it worse. I appreciate that, Space Camp. I hope so too. I hope I'm okay too. It's very strange. I've never had acid reflux for this long, and it's wearing me down, man. Let me tell you, it's wearing me down. You know, it's like torturous trying to sleep at night. Um, I don't want to like over exaggerate or anything, but it's taking a toll, man. Lay off the cat treats. It's like the cat treats are the cure. Go to the doctor. He's like, "Did you try eating some cat treats?" I'm like, "What? Where am I?" But yeah, I do appreciate the support that you guys show the channel. I've been trying my best to keep the content flowing and you know, doing the best I can here on the channel. Yeah, Shadowlink is saying, guys, less GMOs and hit that like button. Yeah, if you could do me that favor as we approach the ending portion of the stream. Neo, that's what I'm thinking, bro. Because you know what I was thinking to myself? You're saying it might be a hernia. Yeah, I was looking into that, dude. I was talking a little bit about this. I was learning that hiatal hernias, like they can do that. If you get a hiatal hernia, it will cause like severe, like persistent, nonstop acid reflux because your stomach is literally protruding through an area it's not supposed to, and it's like basically being squeezed. And I was thinking about when this started, and I'm gonna I gotta see the doctor. I can't, you know, I've spent too many years trying to Google stuff and figure shit out myself to no avail. But I was thinking to myself, like, this started in like the 3rd week of September. And I was trying to think to myself, like, was I doing anything differently? And you know what I was doing? A lot of heavy ass lifting, like furniture and shit. Because Mrs. MBG's grandmother, a whole situation happened with her, and she was no longer able to live in her home. So, you know, I was helping move some stuff out of her home, and I was like thinking, like, there were like multiple days where I'm doing like heavy ass, like way abnormal heavy lifting compared to what I normally do. Um, you're saying this is a complete joke, but it's because you're skipping leg day. Dude, I don't know. For real, that it might not be a joke, because I was thinking like that's around the same exact time I started getting these symptoms. And I remember specifically lifting that sofa. That shit was fucking heavy, dude. That was like pushing my limits heavy. And but that was far from the only heavy thing I was lifting. And it makes me wonder, like, yeah, did I blow a gasket? Did I mess myself up and not know it? Because I was like, when I lift weights, I'm not lifting heavy. I'm not doing like powerlifting or anything like that. Bro, don't be that tough guy out there. No, it's you know what? It wasn't even that. No, I was the one helping. But it was like, damn, now I know why I'm being asked to help, because this shit is brutal. Like, I think that's like the heaviest sofa I ever lifted. Maybe not the heaviest, but it was just way heavier than it had any right to be. Go to the doctor. I am. Don't worry. Tomorrow. Old people furniture is ridiculous with how heavy it was. Yeah, you know, another thing too. Another thing is her grandmother had it's a real nice piece of furniture. They have good, nice furniture though. It's a really big coffee table, dude. Deceptive, absolutely deceptive. With how heavy it is, man. Grandma was doing the heavy lifting. Yeah, I mean, this furniture is like no joke, man. Like, this shit falls on you, you're done. And a mattress. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I don't know. Doing a lot of heavy lifting. So I wonder if that's what did it. But Waylark, I'm sorry to keep you waiting, buddy. You're saying the sad thing is Asmongold will be back to 100K viewers. Yeah, I mean, I didn't look too deeply into like I just saw this stuff like blowing up all over Twitter. And I totally understand why people are like, bro. you know, like I read what he said. I didn't even see the clip, but I did. Well, actually, I saw the clip below it, but I was like reading the subtitles, and I'm just like, oof, oof. And you know what's crazy, man? It serves as a reminder, to be honest. Like, one of the comments I saw somebody leave on the situation when they say like, bro, you could have just spent your days just playing video games and talking about video games and enjoying video games. But instead, it comes down to this. And to be honest, like I kind of like that comment spoke to me because I'm like, I've heard about this. You know, like I've heard about this, but I've also experienced this firsthand where it's like sometimes you get just too wrapped up in things. And as somebody who's been streaming a lot, like I stream a lot, as you guys know, it does become very easy, I think, to get too comfortable in a way. And before you know it, and I'm guilty of this too, where it's just like you're just getting way off track. You know, like you're just going in directions where it's like it's not necessarily anybody's place to determine that you should or shouldn't go in that direction, but it's just know when you're out of your depth, you know, and know, and I'm saying this to myself as well, like know when you're out of your depth. And if you know you're out of your depth, approach it with caution. Be very careful because the reality is that people say what they're going to say behind closed doors. People say what they're going to say to their friends or to their family when nobody's watching, nobody's listening. And that's just the way it's always been. That's the way it will always be. And I think what happens is sometimes streamers forget that. They forget that you have people watching, that you are on camera, you know, that you, especially if you're a big streamer, you have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people watching potentially. You can't just begin to converse like you're just talking to one of your best friends privately, you know? So it's just a kind of, you know, it's a reminder what was said. I'm not going to repeat it. Just, I'm not even going to entertain the conversation here. Like I said, when you're out of your depth, you're out of your depth, and I'm out of my depth. I'm not, you know, I'm here to talk about games, Shadow Link. No, but if just, you could just look it up. It's everywhere. You can't miss it. MBG, I just Googled it and is Google sugarcoating it? I don't know. I didn't need to Google it. It's just, it was like plastered all over my Twitter. But that's the thing that gets me is it's just a reminder, like, I don't know much about Asmongold. I really don't know much about him at all. But from what little I do know is he started as a gaming streamer with like RPGs. I think WoW. I think he started as like a WoW streamer. And I've seen random clips of him like pop up about stuff like that just is not really like it is still somewhat related to gaming. But I don't know, man. It makes me realize that yeah, I just want to keep the conversation as close to you know, just keep it related to gaming. And I think this is why some people have had some issues with my channel over the last year or two where they're like maybe sometimes it gets a little too political and it's too much about like the woke stuff. And like that's fine. Like I think there are many times where I justifiably talked about that, but sometimes it does get too much. Yeah. Irate Volcano says, I have a hiatal hernia. I don't get the acid reflux, but I get really bad stomach cramps. Interesting. Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll have answers soon. It just sucks, you know? I'm just trying to like live my life, trying to produce content for you guys, trying to engage in conversation about video games. But my body's like, but don't you just want to throw up acid instead? It's like, no. I feel like a boomer from Left 4 Dead, man. Don't you guys dare be shit talking Mrs. MBG's cooking. Don't you dare be shit talking Mrs. MBG's cooking. Saying my job is too high stress. Is it? Yeah. Is it this? Is this the cause of my acid? Is it you guys? Not you guys, but streaming? I don't think so. That's another reason why I'm not so sure about that. Because, dude, this came on, like, out of nowhere. How funny would it be? Well, it wouldn't be funny. It'd actually be sad. I hope that's not it. As long as you can clutch a controller, you're good, bro. Sitting in the chair for too long? Oh, I don't know. I never thought of that. I can't imagine sitting in a chair. I don't know. That doesn't add up to me. But all right, guys, where are we at? So we're at the 2 hour and 46 minute mark. My plan, as of right now, is to stream again tomorrow. So we will be back, and we'll do a live reaction to the Xbox partner preview. Since all the games that are going to be there will be on PlayStation as well. But we'll just hang out here for a couple more minutes before I head out. Again, we'll do like the last call. You know how it is. Anybody wants to drop any more member gifts? Anybody wants to drop any more super chats? I'll be going to the doctor after my stream. My appointment's for the evening. Why do I need a doctor when I have all of you? Yeah, that's true, Space Gambler. Why? I got all of you. What time does the Xbox show start? On my end, it starts at 1 o'clock. So I'll probably be live for about an hour chatting with you guys, and then we'll just bring it up. Because it's going to be live anyway, you know? Rub some dirt on it. I have been using Google. Yeah. Google can be like really helpful sometimes, but also the opposite of helpful, and it could just be annoying and make you feel worse. Most of the time, I would say it makes you feel worse. Take a shot every time MBG says you know. Oh, that I know. It's a problem. I don't know that I'm saying it. You know? I'm going to try not to say it. Let's see how long I can go. Pushing Polygon says, MBG, I am many things and have lots of education and life experience. Doctor isn't one. I mean, I try to. My problem is my anxiety. Like, I know a pretty good amount. I mean, I'm not a doctor, certainly not, but I know a pretty good amount. And I feel like I have a generally pretty good idea of how the body works and what you're supposed to do to take care of it and what you're not supposed to do. But my problem is anxiety, where when a problem pops up, I always jump to the worst case and I just assume the worst. And that's why, like, I'm at a point where the way I try to tackle things is if something pops up, just try to think if there's anything obvious that could cause it. If there isn't, give it a little bit of time. Just and if you give it a little bit of time and it doesn't go away, then got to go get it looked into. But I don't know. I've witnessed doctors not take things seriously enough, and doctors, not. I mean, doctors are human too. They make mistakes. They miss things. Anxiety and stomach issues are linked. Make sure you tell the doctor. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there's certainly some link there. And who knows? Maybe that's. I'm definitely a believer in that. Your your mentality, your mindset, your outlook will have an impact on your health physically and how you feel. Not fully, but definitely to a certain degree, it has an impact. You say that with everything. That means you know very little, to be honest. I won't lie, as I get older, I feel like I'm losing my touch with certain things. Like, I feel like I'm getting dumber. Not dumber. I feel like I'm losing my edge, Like, I don't feel as sharp as I was maybe like 6 years ago. I don't know if that's normal or not. Maybe I have to start doing some cognitive exercises, but I definitely don't feel as sharp. Damn, that's crazy pushing polygons. You're saying, MBG, I had a cardiologist miss a tumor the size of a grapefruit that was next to my heart when doing an echo. So, yeah, they're human, all right. Yeah, that's the shit that scares me the most. See, that's the stuff that gives me anxiety, where it's like you can do the right thing, go to the doctor, get your test done. Like, hey, everything's good. It's like, no, it's not. They just completely missed something. And that happens, unfortunately, way more than you would want to think, Oh, I said it. There you go. I said it. It happens more than you would think. Also, some people treat a job like a job. They're only in it for the money. Yeah, I definitely believe that I believe there are certainly jobs that you can approach that way, where like you can be totally indifferent to it and not give a shit about what you're doing, but you just need to get the job done and you need to get it done right. But I don't think being a doctor is one of those jobs. I think because you're directly working with people and their health and their well-being, I think that there has to be just a certain level of passion involved. But yeah, there are certainly doctors out there that maybe the passion is non-existent and it is just a job. Second opinions are key. Thank you, Capono. I appreciate that. So he has anxiety and he's naive. Capono, you're really making me feel great. Well, you are right with that statement. There is nothing new under the sun. Yeah. Well, I'll do what I can. I mean, from my experience, from what I've learned and what I can tell, the mind, man, your mental health and your mind, I'm convinced at this point it's like even more important than your physical well being, truthfully. I mean, your physical well being, I would say is, again, being balanced is equally as important, but I feel like you got to make sure your mind is good first. But the thing is, they're so intertwined. You know what I mean? Like, if you're physically suffering, that's going to have an impact on your mental state and your emotional state. So you do have to try to have all of it in harmony: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. I struggle. I think everybody struggles, but we receive the energy we put out. Hmm. I want to believe that, but I feel like it's not always that simple. Because, like, I think to myself, what about the person that wakes up, puts out really good positive energy, and then just something really bad happens to them for seemingly no reason? You know what I mean? I think about that. I wish I didn't think about it. Like, I wish I didn't have that thought. Like, that thought right there, I wish I didn't have. Because that thought right there, like, I prefer just the simplicity of, yes, we receive the energy we put out. So put out good energy, put out positive energy. But I don't know. See, we are rapidly approaching the 3 hour mark. This might be a good place to maybe conclude it. I just saw somebody said, it is indeed a thing, MEG. Hitting your 30s humbles you a lot. Yeah, I'm like, damn. I just turned 31 and I'm greeted with, you got some severe reflux, bro. Go to the doctor. You got that, I'm getting that 31-year-old energy thrown right at me. Nice and early. Nice and quick. Shadowlink says anxiety comes from anxious thought. Thoughts are energy. You attract what you are and what you think, and the energy you put out both ways. Well, see, that's where I'm in trouble, dude. If it's like that deep, goddamn. I need to master my mind, bro. I need to be like, I don't know. I got to be like something. But guys, that's going to do it for today's stream. I appreciate you kind of hanging out with me a little bit here towards the end. Just some kind of rambling and not fully gaming related, but I don't know. I just figured, I'm close enough to the 3 hour mark. Why not just let it hit it? So, guys, that's going to wrap up the stream. We did cover the topics. Again, not a whole lot to go over today, but I hope you did enjoy the conversation. I enjoyed hanging out with you guys. And before I go, I do want to thank you guys so much for all of the support. Anybody who dropped a super chat, anybody who dropped a membership gift, or if you became a member or re-upped your membership, thank you again. I can only do this because you guys make it possible for me to run this channel the way that I do. And so we have a great community, and I appreciate you guys. And I also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter, who does the timestamps for all the streams. If you guys see him in the comments with the timestamps, give him some thanks, show him some love. I know he really appreciates that. So, all right, guys, just one last request as you're heading out. Just hit that like button for me. Maybe we can push it to 200 likes. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, guys. I'll hopefully, if everything goes according to plan, I'll catch you guys here, same time, same place tomorrow. So that does it. All right. So until then, take care, everyone.